Ethan Carter slammed his resignation letter on Victoria Hale's desk at 11:47 p.m., and she didn't even blink. She just looked up from her laptop, studied his face for 3 full seconds, and said, "Sit down, Ethan." Not a request, not a question, a decision. He didn't sit. He told her something instead, something no employee ever says to their boss. And in that moment, the entire architecture of both their lives cracked open. What she said next wasn't in any management handbook, and it wasn't professional. It was something far more dangerous than that. Drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it hits you right, subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. The resignation letter had taken Ethan 45 minutes to write. Not because he didn't know what to say. He knew exactly what to say. He'd been rehearsing it in his head for 3 weeks. Ever since the Callaway Bridge project had turned into a war zone of impossible deadlines, budget cuts, and a CEO who communicated mostly through silence and the occasional look that made grown men second-guess their career choices. No. The letter took 45 minutes because every time he finished it, he thought about Lily. About her face in the morning when he made her toast with the crusts cut off. About the way she still reached for his hand crossing parking lots, even though she'd told him last month that she was basically almost 8 and didn't need that anymore. About the fact that without this job, he had no idea how he was going to keep the lights on in their apartment. And the apartment. God, the apartment. He hadn't told anyone yet what was happening with the apartment. He folded the letter, unfolded it, read it again, folded it again. Then he drove to the office at 11:15 p.m. on a Tuesday because he knew Victoria Hale would still be there. She was always still there. It was one of the things about her that he hadn't been able to stop noticing. The way her car was always in the lot when he arrived and always in the lot when he left. Like she lived inside that building. Like she had nowhere else to go. Or maybe like she just refused to go. He hadn't decided yet which one it was. The elevator opened onto the 14th floor, and the office was dark except for the far corner. Her glass-walled office, lit up like a lighthouse. Through the glass he could see her at her desk, jacket still on, posture still perfect, staring at something on her screen with an expression that was either deep concentration or the particular kind of exhaustion that stops showing on your face after enough years. Ethan stood in the dark for a moment longer than he intended. He told himself it was because he was organizing his thoughts. He walked to her door and knocked twice. Victoria looked up. She didn't look surprised to see him. He wasn't sure she ever looked surprised by anything. "Ethan?" She said his name the way she said everything. Clean, precise, no wasted syllables. "It's almost midnight." "I know." He pushed the door open and stepped inside. "I need 5 minutes. You can have 3. She leaned back slightly. "I'm in the middle of the load variance review for Callaway." He put the letter on her desk. She looked at it, looked at him, didn't touch it. "That's a resignation letter," he said, in case she somehow didn't know. "I can see that." She still didn't touch it. "Why?" "Because I've been running on 4 hours of sleep for 6 weeks. Because the Callaway timeline is structurally impossible. And I've said that in writing 3 times and been ignored 3 times. Because..." He stopped, took a breath. "Because I need to be there for my daughter, and I don't know how to do that and this job at the same time anymore." Victoria was quiet for a moment. She had a particular quality of silence that was different from other people's silence. It wasn't the silence of someone thinking of what to say. It was the silence of someone who was already done thinking and was now simply deciding whether to say it. "Where is your daughter right now?" she asked. "Home. She's asleep." He paused. "My neighbor's watching her. Mrs. Garrity. She's 73. She doesn't actually like doing it, but she does it because she feels sorry for me and I..." He stopped again. "That's not the point." "What is the point?" "The point is I can't keep doing this. The point is, Lily asked me last week why I smell like coffee when I kiss her goodnight instead of in the morning. The point is, she's 7 years old And she's already adjusted her expectations of me. And I can't. His voice did something he didn't want it to do. He cleared his throat. I can't let that keep happening. Victoria looked at him for a long time. Pick up your letter, she said finally. Victoria, pick it up. She leaned forward. I'm not accepting it tonight. Not because I'm going to pretend the Calloway situation isn't a problem. It is, and we're going to talk about that. But not because you're running on empty at midnight and you drove here because you needed someone to receive this. And that's not the same thing as actually wanting to leave. Ethan stared at her. You don't know that, he said. You drove here instead of emailing it. She held his gaze. That tells me something. He picked up the letter. He didn't know why. He told himself it was because she was technically still his boss, and it was midnight, and the conversation had taken a direction he hadn't planned for. He put it in his jacket pocket and hated himself a little bit for it. Sit down, she said. Tell me about the timeline. He sat. He talked. She listened in that focused, unblinking way of hers, and she asked questions. Real questions, specific questions, the kind that told him she actually understood what he was describing. And somewhere around 12:30 a.m., Ethan realized that this was the first conversation he'd had in weeks where he didn't feel like he was explaining himself to someone who was already looking past him to the next thing. He also realized, with some discomfort, that he'd been talking for 45 minutes. I should go, he said, sitting up. Mrs. Garrity. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. Mrs. Garrity. Something cold moved through him. Mrs. Garrity did not call. Mrs. Garrity was 73 years old, and she texted in all capitals with no punctuation, and she did not call unless something was wrong. Excuse me, he said to Victoria, and answered. Ethan. Mrs. Garrity's voice was higher than usual. Ethan, I'm so sorry to call. I know it's late, but my daughter, she called. There's been an accident, not serious, she's fine, but I need to go. I'm so sorry. I tried to wait, but it's been 2 hours and... It's okay, Ethan said immediately. It's fine, go. Is Lily? She's asleep. She's perfectly asleep, I promise, but I can't. I need to leave, Ethan. I'm so sorry. Go. Please go. Take care of your daughter. I'll be home in 20 minutes. He hung up. Victoria was watching him. Emergency? She asked. My neighbor has to leave. He was already standing, reaching for his jacket. She's the one watching Lily. I have to get home. Of course. Victoria stood too, which he hadn't expected. Go. He was already moving toward the door. Then he stopped. He didn't know why he stopped. He hadn't planned to stop. He hadn't planned to say what he said next, hadn't rehearsed it, hadn't even thought it until the words were already out of his mouth. The particular kind of honesty that only escapes when you're exhausted enough that your defenses have given up for the night. He turned back to her. My daughter has no home tonight, he said. I mean, she does. The apartment is still ours until the end of the month. But after that, I haven't figured out yet where we're going. The landlord sold the building. We have 30 days. I haven't told anyone that. I don't know why I'm telling you that. He said it the way a man says something he's been carrying alone for so long that the weight of it has become its own kind of silence, and the silence finally just broke. He expected her to say something professional, something about resources or housing assistance, or maybe just a polite version of that's not really my department. Victoria Hale looked at him for 3 full seconds. Then I'll stay, she said. He blinked. What? Tonight. She was already reaching for her jacket, her keys. You need to get home to your daughter, and you need someone else in that apartment so she's not alone while you... She stopped, reconsidered. I'll stay. Not forever. Tonight. Victoria. He looked at her like she'd just proposed something in a language he didn't speak. You're my boss. I'm aware of that. You can't just... That's not... He fumbled. That's not something that people do. People with the job title of boss, you mean? People with your job title. He stared at her. You have never once, in the 2 years I've worked for you, you have never... Ethan. She said his name the same way she'd said sit down. Not a request. A decision. Do you want to stand here explaining why this is unusual, or do you want to get home to your daughter? He stood there for exactly 4 more seconds. Then he said, Okay. Lily was still asleep when they got there, exactly as Mrs. Garrity had promised. Curled on her side in the small bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that Ethan had put up 2 years ago, her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm. Ethan stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her breathe. He did this every night. He didn't think he'd ever be able to stop. She sleeps like she's completely confident the world will still be there in the morning, Victoria said quietly, from just behind him. He turned, slightly startled. He'd almost forgotten she was there. Yeah, he said. She does. They moved back to the living room. Ethan put on coffee because he didn't know what else to do with his hands, and Victoria sat at the small kitchen table without being asked, without looking around the apartment the way people sometimes did, cataloging it, assessing it, measuring it against whatever expectations they'd arrived with. She just sat. You don't have to stay, he said, his back to her, waiting for the coffee. She's asleep. She's fine. You've already done the thing. I know. So I'm still here. He turned around. She was looking at the table, not at him. Her hands folded in front of her, her jacket folded over the back of the chair. Without the jacket, she looked slightly different, less architectural. Still precise, but differently precise. The way a blueprint looks when you put it next to the actual building. Can I ask you something? He said. You can ask. He sat down across from her, set the coffee between them. Why do you always stay so late? She looked up. At the office? Every night. I've been there 2 years. I've never once left before you. Something moved through her expression. Subtle, quick, and then gone. Some people go home to somewhere, she said. Some people just go home. He didn't say anything. He understood that answer at a frequency that required no translation. The apartment situation, she said after a moment. 30 days. 28, actually, as of today. Do you have options? I have a list. He exhaled. The list is not inspiring. This neighborhood, Lily's school is 3 blocks from here. Her whole world is 3 blocks from here. Everything that makes her feel like things are normal is 3 blocks from here. He wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. I've been trying to find something close. But close to here is expensive, and I'm one income, and the Callaway project is eating my overtime, and I just... He stopped. I didn't mean to give you the whole breakdown. You didn't give me the whole breakdown, she said. You gave me the facts. There's a difference. Is there? Facts are what you know. Breakdown is what happens when you can't hold the facts anymore. She looked at him steadily. You're still holding them. He sat with that for a moment. Barely, he said. Barely counts, she said. No, at some point the coffee was finished, and they were still talking. Not about Callaway, not about the apartment, not about anything practical. She asked him how Lily had gotten the elephant. He told her. She told him something he hadn't expected. Something small and specific. A detail about her own life she offered without being asked. Like a stone placed carefully across a river to see if it would hold. He didn't push for more. He just noted it. They were still talking when Lily padded out of the bedroom at 2:14 a.m., her hair sideways, her elephant dragging. She stopped at the edge of the living room and stared at Victoria with the unfiltered calm of a 7-year-old who finds a stranger in her kitchen and simply needs to process this. Hi, Lily said. Hi, Victoria said. Are you my dad's friend? Victoria glanced at Ethan, just briefly. I work with your dad, she said. Lily thought about this. Do you like him? Lily? Ethan started. He's good at his job, Victoria said. which was not exactly the same answer as the question, but Lily seemed to find it acceptable. "He makes really good toast," Lily offered. "I've heard that about him." Lily looked at her father. "Can I have water?" "You know where the cups are, baby." She got her water. She looked at Victoria one more time on the way back. "You can stay if you want," she said. "There's a blanket on the couch." Then she disappeared back down the hall. Ethan looked at the empty hallway. "She's never said that to anyone," he said quietly. "In 2 years. She has never once said that to anyone who came over." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Kids know things," she said. "We spend a lot of energy teaching them to doubt what they know." He looked at her. He thought about the coffee that appeared on his desk every morning, exactly where he reaches. The questions she asked in meetings that were too specific for someone who wasn't paying close attention. The way she'd looked at his resignation letter and not touched it, like she already knew he didn't actually want her to. He opened his mouth. He closed it. Some things, he decided, could wait until he was sure of them. "You should take the blanket," he said. "It's cold on that couch." Victoria said nothing, but she didn't leave. And in the quiet of that small apartment, with Lily asleep down the hall and the city going about its indifferent business outside the window, Ethan Carter sat across from his boss at 2:30 in the morning and felt, for the first time in longer than he could clearly remember, like someone else knew he was there. Not his employee file, not his project output, not his role or his title or his deliverables. Him. It was a strange feeling. He wasn't sure yet if it was safe, but it was there. And for tonight, just tonight, he let it stay. The blanket Lily had offered was still folded on the arm of the couch when Ethan woke up at 6:04 a.m. Victoria was gone. Not dramatically gone. Not the kind of gone that leaves questions scattered across the floor. Just quietly gone, the way people leave when they don't want to make their staying into something that requires explanation in the morning. The coffee cups were washed and turned upside down on the drying rack. The chair she'd been sitting in was pushed back under the table at a slight angle, like she'd tried to be tidy about leaving and almost succeeded. He stood in the kitchen for a moment, looking at those two upside-down cups. Then Lily appeared in the hallway, hair still sideways, elephant still present. "Where'd she go?" Lily asked. "Work, probably." "Before breakfast?" "She's that kind of person." Lily considered this with the grave seriousness of someone who respected dedication even when she didn't fully understand it. "Does she eat lunch at least?" "I genuinely don't know," Ethan said. "You should find out," Lily told him and climbed onto her chair. He made toast, crusts off, and poured orange juice and tried not to think about the fact that for approximately 4 hours last night, he had felt like a person with a full life instead of a man managing a controlled collapse. He tried not to think about the specific way Victoria had said barely counts when he'd told her he was holding it together barely. He tried not to think about any of it, and mostly failed, and drove Lily to school 7 minutes late because he'd been standing in front of the bathroom mirror longer than necessary without actually doing anything. "Dad," Lily said at the school entrance. "Yeah." "You have that face." "What face?" "The one where you're somewhere else." She looked up at him steadily. "You're doing it right now." He crouched down to her level. "Sorry, Bug." "It's okay." She patted his shoulder in a way that was slightly too adult for a 7-year-old and entirely too accurate. "Just come back before lunch." He watched her walk through those doors and thought, "This is why. This right here. This is the thing I will do anything to protect." Then he went to work. Victoria's office was dark when he arrived. Her car was not in the lot, which meant she had either gone home at some point or she had simply ceased to exist outside of his apartment and his kitchen table, which was beginning to feel less like an absurd thought and more like a real structural question he needed to answer. Daniel Brooks was already at his desk, which was unusual. Daniel was many things: loyal, funny, aggressively optimistic about the Callaway deadline in a way that Ethan found both irritating and privately comforting. But he was not early. He looked up when Ethan came in and said immediately, "You look terrible." Thank you, Daniel. No, I mean specifically terrible. Not regular tired. Something happened tired. He swiveled fully in his chair. What happened? Nothing happened. Ethan, I've known you for 6 years. Nothing happened to you has a very specific face. That is not that face. Ethan sat down at his desk and turned on his monitor. Victoria Hale came to my apartment last night. The silence that followed was the loudest silence Daniel Brooks had ever produced, and Daniel was a man who had once gone speechless for 30 seconds upon learning that Ethan did not own a television. Come again? Daniel said. She was here when I left. I forgot project files. It's complicated. She came over. It was professional. She came to your apartment. Yes. Victoria Hale. Daniel. The woman who once told Marcus from accounting that his quarterly summary contained, and I quote, the structural integrity of wet newspaper. She's more than that. Another silence. This one was different. More textured. More interested. Yeah, Daniel said slowly. She is. I know she is. I just didn't know you knew that. Ethan looked at his screen without seeing it. She stayed for a while. We talked. Lily woke up and they talked. It wasn't, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't nothing. It definitely wasn't nothing, Daniel said. He said it quietly, seriously, without any of the grin that Ethan had been bracing for. What did she say when she left? She didn't say anything. She was just gone when I woke up. Daniel turned back to his monitor, turned away again. Be careful, he said. Not unkindly, just directly. With that one. She has layers that most people don't know exist, and she does not let people in easily. If she let you in even a little, that means something. And if you're not ready for what that means, Daniel, I'm just saying. I know what you're saying. Ethan finally looked at him. I don't know what I'm doing. That, Daniel said, is at least honest. Victoria walked in at 9:22 a.m. Ethan felt the shift in the room before he saw her. That specific change in air pressure that some people carry with them. The kind that has nothing to do with volume and everything to do with presence. She crossed the floor toward her office without looking at him. Not pointedly. Not the deliberate not looking of someone who's avoiding. Just the natural focus of someone who is always looking at whatever requires attention next. She went into her office and closed the door. Normal. Exactly normal. He told himself this was fine. This was correct. Last night was last night, and this was work. And those two things existed in separate rooms, and that was exactly how it should be. He lasted 40 minutes. Then he picked up the Callaway variance report, which he genuinely needed to discuss with her, and knocked on her office door. Come in. She was at her desk, jacket back on, reading glasses on. He'd never seen the reading glasses before last night, had never been close enough. And she looked up when he entered, and something crossed her face. Fast. Gone. The variance report, he said, holding it up. Evidence of legitimacy. Sit down, she said. He sat. He put the report on her desk. They both looked at it for a moment like it was a third party to a conversation neither of them had fully decided to have yet. How's Lily? Victoria asked, without preamble. Good. 7 minutes late to school, which she forgave me for. She's generous. She gets that from somewhere. He paused. Not from me. Victoria looked at him. You're selling yourself short. You don't have enough data to say that. I have more data than you think. She said it simply, without heat. Then she looked back at the report. Walk me through the load variance on Section 4. So they worked. An hour, then 90 minutes, then 2 hours of actual work. Real, productive, grounded work, with Ethan laying out the structural problems in the Callaway timeline, and Victoria asking questions, and pushing back and agreeing in the places where the numbers simply couldn't be argued with. She called the project director at 11:15 and told him clearly, with Ethan in the room, that the current delivery date was not structurally supportable, and that she would be submitting a revised timeline by end of week, and that this was not a suggestion. When she hung up, Ethan sat back and looked at her. "You could have done that 3 weeks ago," he said. "Yes," she said. "Why didn't you?" She held his gaze. "I needed to understand the full scope of the problem before I put my name on a solution." It was a reasonable answer. It was also, he understood instinctively, not the whole answer. He filed that away. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me. The timeline still needs work." "Not for the timeline." She looked at him. He looked at her. Neither of them said anything for 4 full seconds. "The apartment," she said. 28 days. Is that still accurate?" 27 now." "I want to see your list." He blinked. "My list?" "The housing options. You said you had a list. I want to see it." "Victoria, that's—" "You don't need to, Ethan." She took off the reading glasses and set them on the desk. Without them, she looked slightly different, less shielded somehow. "I have connections in this city that took 20 years to build. Property managers, development contacts, people who owe me a professional favor or two. It is entirely possible that I can make one phone call that solves a problem you've been carrying alone for 30 days. Do you want to be principled about this, or do you want to solve it?" He stared at her. "Send me the list," she said. "After lunch." He sent her the list at 12:43 p.m. She responded with a single word. "Received." At 2:30, she forwarded him an email from a property manager named Gerald Foss with a note at the top that said only, "2 blocks from Lily's school, available end of month. I told him you'd call today." Ethan read it 3 times. 2 blocks from Lily's school, available end of month. He sat very still for approximately 60 seconds. Then he picked up his phone and called Gerald Foss, who turned out to be a pleasant man in his 60s, who spoke to Ethan for exactly 15 minutes and said at the end of the call, "Ms. Hale speaks very highly of you. That carries weight with me." Ethan thanked him and hung up and sat with that sentence for a while. "Ms. Hale speaks very highly of you." He thought about that. Thought about the coffee that appeared on his desk every morning. Thought about the questions in the meetings. Thought about 27 days and a blanket on the couch that hadn't been used and 2 upside-down cups on the drying rack. He got up and walked to Daniel's desk. "I need you to tell me something," he said. Daniel looked up warily. "That depends heavily on what the something is." "Victoria Hale, how long have you known her?" 4 years. Since before you came on." "Is she—" He stopped, tried again. "Has she ever done something like this before? For someone here? Gone out of her way?" Daniel leaned back, looked at him for a long moment. "She's fair," he said carefully. "She's consistent. She does things right. But no." He shook his head slowly. "No, not like this. Not what you're describing." "Then why—" "Ethan." Daniel said his name with a particular weight. "You've been here 2 years. You're talented, you work hard, you're honest in rooms where honesty is unpopular. Those things matter to her, I know that. But talent and honesty don't explain what you're telling me." He paused. "Maybe the question isn't why she's doing it. Maybe the question is, why is it making you nervous?" Ethan didn't answer, because he already knew the answer, and the answer was exactly what made it complicated. He was nervous because it felt real. And real things, in Ethan Carter's recent history, had a pattern of becoming losses. He went back to his desk, and he worked until 6 p.m., and he picked up Lily from the after-school program, and he made dinner, and he listened to her talk about a disagreement with her friend Sophie that had something to do with a specific shade of purple, and who had gotten to use it first, and he nodded in all the right places. And then he put her to bed, and sat on the couch alone, and thought about nothing in particular for a while. His phone lit up at 9:47 p.m. A text from an unknown number, just 3 words. Did he call? He stared at it. Typed back, "How did you get this number?" The response came in under 10 seconds. "Daniel." He almost laughed. He typed, "Yes." He called, "It looks possible." The response, "Good." He looked at the screen. Typed, "Victoria." A pause. Then, yes. He typed, "Why are you doing this?" A longer pause this time. Longer than he expected from someone who usually responded with the speed of someone who'd already prepared the answer. Then, "Because I could, and because you wouldn't have asked for it yourself." He read that twice, set the phone down, picked it up again. "Because you wouldn't have asked for it yourself." He thought about his ex-wife, Claire, about the way she'd told him in the last months of their marriage that he was impossible to reach. Not cold, she'd said, just somewhere far away, behind glass. And she'd spent 2 years pressing her hands against it, and he'd never once opened a door. He'd thought at the time that she was describing a flaw. He was starting to think she had been describing a wound. He typed, "I'm not good at letting people help." The response came quickly this time. "I noticed." He typed, "Is that why you came last night? Because you noticed?" Another pause. Not as long as before. Then, partly. And then, before he could figure out what to type back, "Get some sleep, Ethan. 27 days is still enough time." He set the phone down. He sat in the quiet of the apartment and he listened to the city outside, and he thought about a woman who washed 2 coffee cups at 2 a.m. before she left without saying goodbye, who made one phone call that solved a problem he'd been drowning in for a month, who texted him from an unknown number at 9:47 p.m. because she wanted to know if it worked. He thought about Lily saying, "You can stay if you want." He thought about Victoria saying, "I'll stay." 2 completely different offers. The same instinct underneath them. He went to bed at 10:30 and he slept, actually slept, the way he hadn't in weeks. And in the morning there was a coffee on his desk when he arrived at work, exactly where he always reaches, and he stood in front of it for a moment before he sat down. He had never once seen who put it there. He had always assumed it was the office system, the building's service routine. Automatic. He sat down slowly, picked up the coffee. It was exactly the right temperature, which meant it had arrived recently, which meant someone knew exactly when he got in. He looked toward the glass office at the far end of the floor. Victoria was at her desk, reading something. She didn't look up. But there was something in the angle of her shoulders, the specific quality of someone who is not looking up on purpose. He thought, how long? How long has she been paying this much attention? And then Daniel appeared at his elbow with a stack of files and said, entirely too casually, "So, Gerald Foss, Victoria Hale, late night texts, how are we feeling?" "Go away, Daniel." "That well? Got it." He set down the files and dropped his voice. "For what it's worth, and I know you didn't ask, she was different today, when she came in, marginally, but I noticed things." Ethan looked at him. "Different how?" Daniel thought about it. "Like someone who checked something off a list and didn't expect to feel as good about it as they do." He shrugged. "Just an observation." He walked away. Ethan turned back to his screen. He pulled up the Callaway structural files and tried to work and managed it, more or less, for the next 2 hours. Then, at 11:30, his extension rang, and Victoria's assistant said, "Ms. Hale is asking if you have time this afternoon for the Section 4 review." "Yes," he said. "Tell her yes." He went in at 2 p.m., and they worked. And at some point the work shifted into something else, the way it had a tendency to do with them. A question that was too personal for a meeting, but too natural not to ask. An answer that was more honest than either of them had planned. She asked him how long he'd been doing it alone. 2 years, he said, since the divorce. She said, "Does it get easier?" And he looked at her. At the question underneath the question, the one that wasn't about him at all. And he said, "Some parts. The wrong parts. Sometimes." She nodded slowly, like that confirmed something she'd already suspected. "What about you?" he said. "How long have you been alone in the building after everyone else goes home?" She looked at him. "How long have you noticed?" "Since about the 3rd week." Something moved through her expression. She looked back at her desk. "A while," she said. "Does it get easier?" She was quiet for a moment. "I got better at not noticing it was hard," she said. "That's not the same thing." He sat with that. Let it sit. Barely counts, he said quietly. She looked up. He held her gaze, not pushing, just offering back what she'd given him. Her phone rang. She looked at it, looked at him, let it ring one more time before she answered. He stood up quietly and gathered his files. At the door, he stopped without turning around, because some things are easier to say to a room than to a face. The apartment tour is Saturday morning, he said. Gerald Foss, 2 blocks from Lily's school. A pause. I know, she said. He nodded once. Thank you, he said. Not for the timeline, he did not say. Not for the apartment. For noticing. For not being the kind of person who lets someone drown just because they haven't asked for a rope. He went back to his desk and he worked until 6, and he picked up Lily and drove home, and somewhere on the route, Lily said, completely unprompted, "Is the lady coming back?" He kept his eyes on the road. What lady? The one from work, with the quiet voice. I don't know, Bug. Lily thought about this for approximately 10 seconds. She should, she said, with the conclusive tone of someone who has weighed all available evidence and rendered a final verdict. She looked like she needed somewhere to be. He didn't answer. He thought, out of the mouths of 7-year-olds. He thought, she's not wrong. He thought, the problem is I'm starting to think so too, and I don't entirely know what to do with that yet. He pulled into the parking spot and turned off the engine and sat there for a moment before he got out. 26 days. Somewhere in this city, a woman who could have simply emailed him project files had knocked on his door instead. Had stayed. Had washed 2 cups. Had made 1 phone call. Had texted him from an unknown number at 9:47 at night to ask if it worked. And none of that, not one single piece of it, was in any management handbook he'd ever read. He got out of the car. He was starting to understand that this was not a problem to be solved. It was something else entirely. And he had approximately 26 days, and whatever came after, to figure out what he was going to do about it. Saturday came the way important days always do, quietly, without announcement, as if the calendar had agreed not to make a big deal of it. Ethan was up at 6:15, which was earlier than he needed to be. He told himself it was because Lily always woke up early on weekends, which was true, but it was not the whole truth. The whole truth was that he had not slept past 5:45 since the text conversation with Victoria 4 days ago, because his brain had apparently decided that 5:45 a.m. was an excellent time to replay the phrase barely counts and the phrase I got better at not noticing it was hard, and arrange them in different orders to see if they meant different things. They always meant the same thing. Lily appeared at 6:32, elephant underarm, and announced that she wanted pancakes with blueberries, and could they also get a dog sometime, and were they going to see the new apartment today? Yes to the apartment, Ethan said. No comment on the dog. That means maybe, Lily said confidently, and climbed onto her chair. He made pancakes. He put blueberries in them. He did not comment on the dog. Gerald Foss met them at 9 a.m. on the dot, which Ethan respected. He was exactly as he'd sounded on the phone. Pleasant, direct, unhurried. He shook Ethan's hand and then looked down at Lily with the easy warmth of someone who had grandchildren and was not afraid to show it. "And who's this?" Gerald said. "Lily Carter," Lily said. "I'm almost 8. "A serious age," Gerald said. "Very serious," Lily agreed. The apartment was on the 2nd floor. 2 bedrooms, good light, a kitchen with enough counter space that Ethan would actually be able to cook without performing a logistical operation, and a window in the 2nd bedroom that faced east. Lily pressed her face to that window within 30 seconds of entering the room and said, "I can see the school from here." 2 blocks, Gerald confirmed. "I can practically walk by myself," Lily said. "Not quite yet," Ethan said. "But soon," Lily said, with the tone of someone planting a flag. Gerald showed Ethan the building details, the lease terms, the utility setup. Good numbers, fair deposit. Available the 28th, which gave them 2 days of overlap with the current place, enough to move without panic. Ethan walked through each room and pressed on walls the way his engineering instincts required him to, and noted the fixtures and calculated the angles, and did all the practical things a person does when they're trying to make a responsible adult decision. And underneath all of that, in the part of his mind that did not deal in load-bearing calculations, he was thinking. Victoria made one phone call. One. And this is what appeared. Gerald walked him back to the entrance at 10:15. Lily was in the second bedroom deciding, apparently, where a bookshelf would go. Ms. Hale mentioned you might need a quick turnaround on paperwork, Gerald said. She thought of everything, Ethan said. Gerald smiled. She usually does. He paused. She called personally, you know, not through an assistant. That's not... She doesn't usually do that. Ethan looked at him. I just thought you should know, Gerald said simply. Ethan drove home with Lily narrating an elaborate plan for her new room that involved, in order, a purple bookshelf, a reading corner with a specific kind of lamp she'd seen somewhere, and possibly a small fish. Not a dog, she clarified generously. Just a fish. Very reasonable. He said in the appropriate places and thought about a woman who had called personally. At 1:30 p.m., he texted her, "We're taking it." The response came in under a minute. Good. He stared at the single word. Typed. Gerald said you called personally, not through your assistant. A pause. Then. He talks too much. He almost smiled. Typed. Why? The pause this time was longer. Long enough that he put the phone down and picked it up again twice before the response appeared. Because some things are worth doing yourself. He sat with that for a long time. Then he made a decision that he had been circling for 4 days. The way you circle something you want and are not quite sure you have the right to want. And he typed, Lily wants to celebrate. She asked if the lady from work with the quiet voice could come. He stared at what he'd typed, considered deleting it, did not delete it, hit send. The pause this time was different. Not the pause of composing, but the pause of something unexpected arriving and needing a moment to be processed. Then, what time? He exhaled something he hadn't known he was holding. 7, he typed. Dinner. Nothing complicated. The response. I'll bring something. He put the phone down and went to tell Lily, who received the news with a satisfaction so complete and so unsurprised that he had the unsettling feeling his 7-year-old had been running a longer game than he'd realized. Victoria arrived at 7:03 with a bakery box and a bottle of sparkling cider and the particular expression of someone who has made a decision and is committed to it and is only slightly terrified, which on Victoria Hale's face looked like the most composed thing he'd ever seen. Lily opened the door before Ethan could get there. You came, Lily said. I said I would, Victoria said. People say things, Lily said, with the world weariness of someone who had learned this lesson. I know, Victoria said. I try not to say things I don't mean. Lily looked at her for a serious moment. Then she stepped back. Come in. Dad's making pasta. I brought dessert. Lily's eyes went to the bakery box with the focused appreciation of a person with excellent priorities. What kind? Chocolate tart. Good choice, Lily said, and led her inside like she owned the place, which she did. Dinner was easy, in a way that Ethan had not fully anticipated and could not entirely explain. Victoria sat at the kitchen table while he finished the pasta, and she answered Lily's questions. And Lily had many questions, delivered with the rapid-fire intensity of someone conducting an important interview, with a patience and a specificity that you could not fake, because children always know when you're performing patience and when you actually have it. Lily asked what her job was. Victoria explained it in terms Lily could follow. Lily asked if she had a dog. Victoria said no, she'd never had a pet. Lily looked at her with something that was almost pity. Not even a fish? Not even a fish. We might get a fish, Lily said. When we move. I'm working on Dad. I can see that, Victoria said, and looked briefly at Ethan with something in her expression that was close enough to amusement that it changed her face entirely. He looked away before he made a thing of it. They ate, and Lily talked, and at some point, Victoria started talking back, and Ethan watched the two of them and thought, "This is not how I expected tonight to go." He hadn't expected ease. He'd been prepared for the specific awkwardness of two worlds that don't quite fit being pressed together in a small kitchen. But Lily had a gift, had always had a gift, for making people feel like they were in the right place. Like wherever she was, there was room. She got it from somewhere. He was starting to think it might be an innate thing, something that existed in her completely apart from either of her parents, some grace she'd arrived with. At 8:30, Lily hit the wall with the sudden completeness that only children can manage. 1 minute fully present, the next minute gone, eyelids heavy, elephant already back in her arms. "Bed," Ethan said. "5 more minutes," Lily said, which was not a request, but a formality. "Now." Lily stood up. She looked at Victoria. Then, with the decisive lack of self-consciousness that was entirely her own, she walked around the table and hugged Victoria, quick, firm, real, and then walked down the hall without looking back. Victoria sat very still. Ethan watched her. He had seen Victoria Hale field a hostile boardroom. He had watched her dismantle a project director's bad math in real time with the particular precision of someone who does not enjoy it, but will absolutely do it. He had seen her hold the room in ways that most people twice her age couldn't manage. He had not seen her look like this, like something had just walked up and handed her something she hadn't known was missing. He gave her a moment. Then he said quietly, "She does that." Victoria looked up. "What?" "Decides she trusts someone and just goes ahead and acts like it. No preamble." "That must be terrifying," Victoria said. "Every day," he said. "It's also, I don't know. It's the bravest thing I've ever seen." Victoria looked toward the hallway where Lily had disappeared. Something moved through her expression, slow, complicated, and entirely honest. "When did she stop being afraid?" she said. "Or was she always—" "She was afraid for a while," Ethan said. "After Claire left. She was 4, so she didn't understand the whole shape of it, but she understood something had changed. She used to check the front door every night before bed, to make sure I was still there." "Does she still?" "No," he said. "She stopped about 6 months ago." He paused. "I think she decided she could trust that I wasn't going anywhere." Victoria was quiet. "That's what you give her," she said. It was not a question. "I try." She looked at him directly. "You do more than try, Ethan." He shifted slightly. "You don't have full visibility on that. You got up this morning and made blueberry pancakes and drove her to an apartment and watched her decide where her bookshelf goes and then came home and made dinner. And tonight you let her stay up a little past her bedtime because she was happy." She didn't say it with warmth exactly. She said it the way she said everything that was true, plainly, without decoration. "That's not trying. That's doing." He didn't answer. She said, "Why is it hard to hear?" "Because I know what I'm doing wrong," he said. "The list is long. Everyone's list is long. Some lists are longer." She set her fork down on the empty plate. "What did Claire say to you when she left?" It was a direct question, blunter than he'd expected. He considered not answering. Then he said, "She said I was somewhere behind glass, that she could see me, but she couldn't reach me." He looked at the table. "That she'd stopped trying to reach me because it hurt more than not trying." A long pause. "Was she right?" Victoria asked. "Partially," he said. "I think she was right about the glass. I think she was wrong about what was behind it." "What was behind it?" He looked up at her. "Everything. All of it. I didn't close up because I was empty. I closed up because I was too full and I didn't know what to do with it. And it's easier. It was easier to just manage, to just run the day correctly and do the thing right and not need anything." Victoria was watching him with the specific expression of someone who is not listening for a pause to speak, but just listening. "How's that working?" she said finally. He almost laughed. About as well as you'd expect. She nodded slowly. Then she said something that hit him sideways, the way true things sometimes do. I understand that, she said. The managing. The running the day correctly. She looked at the table. I built a whole company on it. Made it the architecture of my entire life. And then one day I walked into a quarterly review, and one of my engineers forgot his files on my desk, and I stood there looking at his files for 10 minutes after he left, and I thought... She stopped. He waited. I thought, I don't remember the last time something was left in my space by accident. She looked up. Everything in my life is placed, intentional, exactly where I put it. And I realized that I had arranged my entire existence so that nothing could arrive by accident. A pause. Because accidents meant something got close enough to land. He said nothing. She said, Your files were an accident. He understood that completely. And then you came back for them, she said. And you were so... You were honest in the way that people are honest when they're exhausted enough that the performance cost is too high. You said the things that were actually true, without any of the management layer. And I thought... She stopped again, gathered it. I thought, I want to be in a room where people say the true things. I can't remember the last time someone said the true things near me. The kitchen was very quiet. He said, Is that why you came, that night? She met his eyes. Yes, she said. Among other reasons. What are the other reasons? A pause. Longer this time. I think you know, she said. He did know. He had known for a while. He had been managing that knowledge the way he managed everything, carefully, at a controlled distance, making sure it didn't arrive close enough to land. He said, Victoria. She said, Don't. He stopped. Not yet, she said. It was not a rejection. It was a tempo, a hand on his arm saying slow down, not stop. I need you to understand that I don't do this, any version of this. I have not done any version of this in a very long time, and I'm not sure I know how to do it without being wrong about it. I'm not sure I do either, he said. Then we're both bad at this, he said. I know, that doesn't have to be an obstacle. She looked at him. 2 bad navigators can still get somewhere, he said. It just takes longer. Something shifted in her expression. He couldn't name it exactly. It was the look of a person who has been handed something and is deciding whether they are allowed to hold it. Then Lily's voice came down the hallway, sleepy and unignorable. Dad, can you check the door? He stilled, looked down the hall. I thought she stopped doing that, Victoria said quietly. She did, he said. And his voice did something when he said it. He went down the hall. Lily was sitting up in bed, eyes half closed, elephant in her lap. Hey, Bug, he said. Everything's okay. I know, she said, with the certainty of someone who needed to say the words anyway. I just wanted you to check. I checked, he said. I'm here. She settled back. He tucked the blanket up. She was asleep again in under a minute, with the total faith of someone who had decided, once and for all, that the person at the door was not going anywhere. He stood in the doorway for a moment. Then he went back to the kitchen. Victoria had cleared the table. Plates in the sink. Bakery box on the counter. She was standing with her back to him, and she didn't turn around right away. When she did, her expression was composed again, but it was the composition of someone who has felt something and is carrying it carefully, not hiding it. She checked the door, Victoria said. Yeah. Even though she stopped. Even though she stopped. He leaned against the counter. She does it when something feels. When something matters. Like she needs to confirm that the ground is still solid before she lets herself... He stopped. Before she lets herself want something. Victoria looked at him. He looked at her. He said, I think she gets that from me after all. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who have said more true things in one evening than they've said to most people in a year, and who are now in the particular stillness of not knowing what comes next, but knowing, with some certainty, that something does. Victoria picked up her jacket from the chair. He said, "You don't have to go." She looked at him. "I know." She put the jacket on. "I'll see you Monday," she said. "Monday," he said. She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. "Ethan?" "Yeah." She didn't turn around. "Thank you for dinner." "Thank you for the chocolate tart." A pause. "Lily's going to want a fish," she said. "I know." "You should let her get the fish." "I know that too," he said. She opened the door. He watched her go. He stood in the kitchen for a long time after, listening to the quiet of the apartment. Lily breathing down the hall, the city outside doing its indifferent thing. And he thought about all the things they had said, and the one thing neither of them had said yet. And he thought, there are 23 days left on his lease. And he thought, Monday is 2 days away. And he thought, for the first time in 2 years, 2 days feels like almost too long to wait. He turned off the kitchen light. He checked the front door. Then he went to bed. Monday came and went without incident, which should have been reassuring, and was instead the specific kind of unsettling that happens when you are waiting for something, and the something does not arrive on the schedule you had unconsciously assigned it. Victoria was professional, precise. She ran the 9 a.m. team meeting with her usual efficient authority, asked Ethan 2 direct questions about the revised Callaway timeline, nodded at his answers, and moved on. She did not look at him any differently than she looked at anyone else in the room. She did not give him any signal that Saturday evening had happened at all. He told himself this was appropriate. He told himself he had not expected anything different. He was lying on both counts, and he knew it. Daniel, who had the emotional radar of a man who had survived 2 divorces and 3 corporate restructurings and therefore missed nothing, appeared at Ethan's desk at 10:47 and said, "She seemed normal this morning." "She is normal," Ethan said. "Interesting word choice." "Daniel, I'm just noting that normal, in the context of Victoria Hale, covers a lot of ground." He set a coffee down on Ethan's desk. Not the one that appeared every morning, a different one, from the machine down the hall. "How was Saturday?" Ethan looked at his screen. "Fine. Fine. Good, actually. Good." She brought chocolate tart. Daniel sat down in the empty chair across from him. "Ethan, I've known you for 6 years. You have a tell. It's very subtle, and most people would miss it completely, but I have 6 years of data, and I can tell you with absolute confidence that you are currently doing the thing where you feel something significant, and you are trying to route it through the words fine and good so that it doesn't get too close." Ethan looked at him. "What do you want me to say?" Something true would be a start. A pause. "It felt like something," Ethan said. "It felt like something real. And she left, and now she's in that office being exactly professional, and I don't know what to do with the gap between those 2 things." Daniel nodded slowly. "She's scared," he said. "I know she's scared." "So are you." "I know that too. So you're 2 scared people standing on opposite sides of a room pretending the room is a professional environment." Daniel stood up. "Classic situation. Very common. Usually resolves one of 2 ways." He picked up his own coffee. "Either someone walks across the room, or you both eventually stop coming to the room." He walked away. Ethan sat with that for the rest of the morning. At 12:15, his phone lit up with a text from a number that was no longer unknown because he had saved it, sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning, under the name V. Hale, and then immediately felt like an idiot about the formality of that, and left it anyway. The text said, "Lunch, not a request." He looked at it, typed back, "Where?" The response, "My office, 12:30. He went at 12:30. She had food on her desk. Sandwiches from the place 3 blocks away that had better bread than it had any right to given its location. She gestured at the chair, and he sat, and for about 90 seconds they ate in silence, which with Victoria never felt like avoidance. It felt like the silence of someone organizing what they actually want to say. "I owe you something," she said. He looked up. "You don't owe me anything. I went home Saturday and I thought about how I left," she said. "And I think I left the way I always leave, which is before things get complicated. It's a habit. I'm aware it's not a good one." He set his sandwich down. "You don't have to." "I'm not done," she said. He stopped. "I have been alone," she said, "for long enough that I have reorganized my entire understanding of what I need so that it fits inside what I allow, so that nothing is missing, officially, because I've eliminated the category." She looked at him steadily. "Saturday evening, I sat in your kitchen and your daughter fell asleep, and I thought, there is a category I eliminated that should not have been eliminated, and that was uncomfortable." "It doesn't have to be uncomfortable," he said. "It is," she said. "That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means I don't do this gracefully, Ethan. I want you to know that before—" She stopped, recalibrated. "I want you to know that going in." "Going into what?" he said. Not to push, to clarify, to make her say it out loud so that it existed in the room between them as a real thing. She looked at him. "Whatever this is," she said. He held her gaze. "Whatever this is," he said. A pause. "Okay," she said. She picked up her sandwich. "The Callaway Section 6 numbers need to go to the director by Thursday." The subject was closed. The subject was also not closed at all. It was just placed carefully where they could both see it without staring directly at it. He understood this. He worked with it. Thursday, at 4 p.m., they submitted the revised Callaway timeline together, and the project director called back 40 minutes later and was unhappy in the specific way that people are unhappy when the numbers are correct and they cannot argue with the numbers. Victoria handled the call with the kind of calm authority that made Ethan think that she had been winning arguments like this since before he had his engineering degree. When she hung up, she looked at him and said, "Done." "Done," he agreed. "The move is Saturday," she said. "Yeah." He'd been thinking about Saturday, about boxes and logistics and the particular cheerful chaos of Lily directing where everything should go in the new apartment with the east-facing window. About the fact that he had not asked anyone for help because he had not, in 2 years, developed a reliable mechanism for asking for help. "I'll be there at 8, Victoria said. He looked at her. "To help," she said, "with the move." "Victoria, you don't—" 8 a.m., she said. "Lily will need someone to be with her while you carry things." He looked at her for a long moment. 8, he said. She showed up at 7:52. She showed up in jeans and a plain gray shirt, and her hair down, which he had never seen. And she was carrying 2 coffees and a bag with breakfast sandwiches, and she walked in like someone who had decided ahead of time that this was what she was doing, and no amount of second-guessing was going to be entertained. Lily saw her from the hallway and said, in a tone of immense satisfaction, "You came." "I said I would," Victoria said. "I know," Lily said. "I just like when people do what they say." Moving day with a 7-year-old is not an operation in efficiency. It is an operation in negotiation, creative problem-solving, and the careful management of a small person who has strong opinions about the order in which things should be relocated. Lily had decided that her bookshelf was the most important thing and needed to go first, a position she held with total conviction, and Victoria, who Ethan would have expected to find this maddening, instead calmly agreed that they would start with the bookshelf and work from there. Ethan carried boxes. Victoria and Lily carried things that were not boxes. Stuffed animals, carefully held. The lamp with the specific shade. The box of art supplies that could not be stacked under anything. They made a system. It was Lily's system, technically, and it was chaotic by any engineering standard. But it worked, and at 1:30 p.m., Ethan set down the last box in the new apartment and stood in the kitchen and felt something he hadn't felt in long enough that it took him a moment to name it. Relief. Just relief. Clean and simple. Lily ran down the hall and came back. "My room looks like my room already," she announced. "That's because your bookshelf is already there," Victoria said. "Exactly," Lily said, vindicated. They ordered pizza. They sat on the floor of the new living room because the couch was in the wrong position, and Ethan hadn't yet decided where it actually went. And they ate pizza, the three of them. And Lily talked with the sustained energy of someone who was processing a big day through words, which was always how she processed things. Then, at 3:15, a car pulled up outside that Ethan recognized. He recognized it before he could stop himself from recognizing it. A silver sedan with a small dent in the rear passenger panel that had been there since 2019 and that he had always meant to fix and hadn't. He knew that car the way you know something that used to be part of your daily life and then stopped being part of it. The knowing was automatic and involuntary, and it sat in his chest like a stone. Claire. He got up from the floor with a calm he did not feel. "Stay here," he said, to no one specifically. Lily looked up with the quick, bright-eyed alertness of a child who has learned to read the temperature of a room. Victoria looked at him with a different kind of alertness, sharper, quieter. He went downstairs. Claire was standing on the sidewalk, looking up at the building with an expression he recognized, the expression she wore when she was preparing for a conversation she had scripted in advance. She was dressed well, hair done. That was also preparation. "I called the old apartment," she said, when she saw him. "They said you'd moved." "I moved today," he said. "I would have helped." "I had help." She looked at him. "Can we talk?" "We're talking." "Inside, Ethan." "No," he said. She blinked. In their marriage, he had rarely said no in that tone. The tone without cushioning, without the slight upward inflection that left room for negotiation. He had said no plenty of times, but always in a way that left a door open, because keeping a door open was his default architecture. He didn't leave doors open this time. "There are some things I want to say," she said. "Okay." "About Lily. About the arrangement. I've been thinking, Claire." He kept his voice even. "Whatever you're thinking about the arrangement, you need to say it to my lawyer, not to me on a sidewalk. I'm not here to start a legal thing." "Then what are you here to start?" She looked at him, really looked at him, in the way she used to when she was trying to read something she couldn't quite access. "You seem different," she said. "I'm the same." "You're not. You're—" She stopped. "Is someone up there with you?" "Yes," he said, no cushioning. Something moved across her face. "Who?" "That's not something I'm going to discuss with you." "Ethan, we have an arrangement," he said. "It works. Lily is good. Her school is 2 blocks from here now, and she has a room she likes, and she had blueberry pancakes yesterday, and she is absolutely fine. If something changes that affects Lily in a real way, I'll call you. But you drove here today because something shifted in your thinking, and I don't know what that something is, and I want you to understand that that I'm not available for it." She stared at him. "I'm not available for it," he said again. Not cruelly, just truly, like a door that had been left open for 2 years and had finally, quietly, swung shut on its own. She stood there for a moment. Then she said, "You really are different." He said nothing. She got back in the car. He stood on the sidewalk and watched her go and felt a number of things in quick succession. The adrenaline of the conversation, the strange flat feeling after adrenaline, something that might have been grief in a small and distant way. And underneath it all, clear and steady and surprising in its clarity. Relief. Again. Just relief. He went back upstairs. Victoria was in the kitchen. Lily was down the hall. He could hear her moving things, rearranging her newly confirmed room. Victoria looked at him when he came in, and she did not ask. She just handed him the last slice of pizza, which she had clearly been holding for him, and said, "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said, and meant it. She looked at him. "Was that?" "Yes." A pause. Did she come because she knew? I don't know why she came, he said. I don't think she fully knew either. He took the pizza. She won't come back, not like that. Victoria nodded slowly. She was watching him with that careful attention, not prying, not pressing, just present with whatever was happening on his face. You handled it, she said. I did. How does that feel? He thought about it honestly. Like putting down something I'd been carrying without knowing I was carrying it, he said. She said nothing, but something shifted in her expression, a kind of quiet understanding, the look of someone who has put things down before and knows what that particular relief feels like. They stood in the kitchen of his new apartment, and Lily was down the hall narrating something to her elephant about the placement of the purple bookshelf, and the city went on outside. And Ethan looked at Victoria and thought, this is the before. This is the last moment of the before. Something was coming. He didn't know the exact shape of it yet, but he could feel it the way an engineer feels a structure shifting, not breaking, not falling, but changing, settling into a new configuration. He said, I want to tell you something. She looked at him. I spent 2 years getting very good at not needing anything, he said. I built the whole thing from the ground up, every system, every routine, every defense. I became extremely competent at a life that was missing something, and I told myself the competence was enough. She was very still. And then you showed up, he said, in my office, with project files that could have been emailed. And then you showed up at my apartment, and then in my kitchen, and now here. He gestured. The apartment, the pizza box, the sound of Lily down the hall. And every single time, I have tried to file it under professional or practical or just circumstances. And I can't anymore. I have run out of filing systems. She held his gaze. Her hands were flat on the counter beside her, very still. I'm not asking you for anything, he said. I'm not. I'm not putting pressure on whatever this is. I just needed to say it out loud because I have been not saying things for 2 years, and I'm starting to think that the not saying is what kept me behind the glass. A long pause. The longest she'd given him. Ethan, she said. Yeah. I drove past your apartment, she said. 3 weeks ago, before the night I came with the files. She said it looking directly at him, the way she delivered everything true, without flinching and without decoration. I knew you were dealing with the lease situation. Daniel mentioned it, not as gossip, just... It came up. And I drove past your building on a Tuesday evening, and I sat in the car for 12 minutes and I thought about going up and then I didn't, because I told myself it was inappropriate, not my place. He said nothing. He waited. And then you came to my office at midnight, and you put a resignation letter on my desk, and you said your daughter had no home, and I thought... She stopped. I thought, you already know where you want to go. Stop making it professional. He said, Is that why you stayed? Yes, she said. Is that why you let me? He looked at her. Yes, he said. The silence was different from every other silence they'd shared. Not loaded, not waiting. Just clear. Then Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway. Are you guys having a moment? She asked, with the direct forensic capability of a child who has been alive long enough to notice things, but not long enough to pretend she hasn't. Ethan looked at his daughter. Victoria looked at his daughter. Maybe, Victoria said. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. Okay, she said. Can someone come help me with the lamp? I need a taller person. Victoria went. Ethan stood in the kitchen alone for exactly 4 seconds, listening to the sound of them down the hall. Victoria asking where Lily wanted it. Lily saying no, a little to the left, no the other left. And he thought about 12 minutes in a car on a Tuesday evening 3 weeks ago. About a woman who knew which way he reached for his coffee. About files that could have been emailed. About the fact that some people choose you quietly and repeatedly and from a distance. And wait. About the fact that the bravest thing you can do sometimes is just stop waiting to be sure it's safe and open the door. He went down the hall. He helped with the lamp. The lamp worked fine in the corner Lily had chosen, which Lily accepted as confirmation that her instincts were correct and should be trusted going forward in all matters, including but not limited to the fish question. That evening, after Victoria left and Lily was in bed in her new room with the east-facing window, Ethan sat on the floor of the living room with his back against the couch that was still in the wrong position, and he did not move it. He just sat there in the quiet of a new space that still smelled like fresh paint and someone else's cleaning products, and he thought about 12 minutes in a parked car, about a woman who had driven past his building on a Tuesday and almost come up and hadn't, and then showed up 2 weeks later with project files that could have been emailed and stayed until 2 a.m. and washed 2 cups and left without a word. He thought about all the distance a person can travel while appearing to stand still. He went to bed at 10:30 in a room where the boxes were not yet unpacked, and he slept better than he had in months. Sunday passed in the productive chaos of unpacking, which Lily supervised with the focused authority of a small general. She had opinions about where things went. Many opinions. Some of them were good. Ethan followed approximately 70% of them and negotiated the rest. By 4 p.m., the apartment looked like somewhere people actually lived, which was different from his previous apartment, which had looked like somewhere a person was efficiently surviving. He noticed the difference. He wasn't sure when surviving had stopped feeling like enough, but it had. Monday morning, he got to the office at 8:40, and the coffee was on his desk exactly where he always reached for it. And this time, he did not look at it for 30 seconds, pretending not to understand where it came from. He picked it up, walked to Victoria's office, knocked once, and opened the door. She looked up. "The coffee," he said. "Every morning. For how long?" She looked at him without blinking. 14 months. He stood there. 14 months. Give or take. "Victoria, that's over a year." "I'm aware of the math. Why didn't you ever?" "Because it was something I could do," she said, with a simplicity that was completely honest and completely devastating. "And you never had to know it was me for it to be useful. That was enough." He sat down in the chair across from her desk without being invited. "That is possibly the most you thing you have ever said to me." Something moved across her face. Not quite a smile, but the shape that exists just before one. "Go drink your coffee, Ethan." "I'm serious." "So am I. It's getting cold." He drank the coffee. He went back to his desk. He sat down and stared at his monitor and thought, 14 months. She had been paying attention for 14 months before she ever came to his apartment, before she ever sent him the email about Gerald Foss, before any of it. He thought about what Daniel had said. She doesn't let people in easily. If she let you in even a little, that means something. He thought about what a little meant to someone who had spent 14 months making sure a person had coffee before they knew they needed it. At 11 a.m., Daniel appeared at his desk with the expression of someone who has information and has been restraining himself from delivering it for approximately as long as he can manage, which with Daniel was never very long. "Claire called the office," Daniel said. Ethan looked up. "What?" "This morning, she asked for you. Janine told her you were unavailable. She asked for Victoria." He paused. Victoria took the call. The coffee sat cold in Ethan's hand. "When?" "About 40 minutes ago, behind closed doors." He looked at Ethan steadily. "I don't know what was said. The call lasted 6 minutes. 6 minutes." Ethan set down the cup. He thought about Claire on the sidewalk Saturday. The scripted expression, the well-dressed preparation. She came because something shifted, he'd said. He just hadn't known yet what she'd shifted toward. He got up. He knocked on Victoria's door and did not wait to be told to come in. She was at her desk, completely composed, which told him nothing, because she was always completely composed, and he had spent enough time around her now to know that composure was not the same as unbothered. "She called," he said. "Yes." "What did she say?" Victoria folded her hands on the desk. She wanted to know who I was, she said. In relation to you. She said she'd done some research and found out I was your employer, and she wanted to understand the nature of our relationship. What did you tell her? I told her that our relationship was professional, and that anything beyond that was not her business, and that if she had concerns about Lily's well-being or the custody arrangement, she should direct them to the appropriate legal channels. He exhaled. That's exactly right. I know it is. She paused. But she said something before I ended the call. He waited. She said you were different on Saturday, that you'd changed, and she said... Victoria's voice was very even, the evenness of someone holding something carefully. She said she wanted to make sure someone wasn't taking advantage of a situation, of your situation. The silence that followed was the kind that has temperature. Ethan felt it. She said that about you, he said. It was not a question. She implied it, yes. He looked at her. He looked at the complete, careful stillness of Victoria's face, and he understood something that he should have understood the moment Daniel told him about the call. Claire had not called to ask about Lily. Claire had not called because she was concerned about the custody arrangement. Claire had called because she had stood on a sidewalk on Saturday and seen something on his face that she recognized and that she had spent 2 years telling herself was gone, and she had needed to find a way to reach into it and create doubt. Victoria, he said. It's fine, she said. It's not fine. She said that to you about you, and it's not... Ethan. Her voice was still even, but something underneath it was not. I have built a company from the ground up. I have sat across from people who tried to use a great deal more than a 6-minute phone call to make me question my own judgment. I am not... She stopped, looked at the desk for 1 second, looked back up. I am not fragile about this. I know you're not fragile. That's not... He leaned forward. I don't want you to have to be strong about this. That's different. She looked at him. You shouldn't have to be strong about something that came from my life landing on yours, he said. That's not what I want for you. Very quietly, she said. What do you want for me? He held her gaze. Something easier than this, but since this is what we have, I want you to know that what she said is wrong. Every word of it. And I need you to know that I know that, and I need that to be said out loud, in this room, right now. Because if we let it sit unsaid, then she gets to plant something in the space between us, and I am not going to let that happen. A long pause. She was angry, Victoria said. Not about me specifically, about the fact that you'd moved on, that something in you had settled. She could see it, and she didn't know what to do with it. That's her problem to carry, Ethan said. Yes, Victoria said. It is. He sat back. He let out a slow breath. Are you okay? She considered the question with a seriousness that told him she was not going to give him a reflexive fine. I'm processing, she said. She hit something specific. She's good at that. She knows the shape of your vulnerability, and she aimed adjacent to it. What did she hit? A pause. The longest pause she'd given him in weeks. The idea that I'm here because it's convenient for me, in some professional capacity. That there's a power imbalance, and I'm the one with the power, and that makes everything suspect. She looked at the desk. That is not a concern I haven't had myself. Victoria. I'm not agreeing with her. I'm telling you what she hit. Then hear me, he said. You are the least convenient thing that has happened to me in 2 years. You have been inconvenient from the first minute. You came to my apartment, and you stayed, and you washed 2 cups, and you texted me from an unknown number, and you called Gerald Foss personally, and you showed up in jeans on a Saturday morning with breakfast sandwiches. None of that is the behavior of someone managing a professional asset. That is the behavior of a person who is trying, in the way that they know how, to be present for someone. She was very still. And the power thing, he said. If I thought for 1 second that this was about power, yours over mine or mine over anything, I would have walked away. You know that. You've watched me for 14 months. You know exactly what I do when I think something is wrong. You write a resignation letter, she said, and something happened in her voice when she said it. A shift, a crack in the evenness, small but real. I write a resignation letter, he confirmed. And then I put it in my pocket because someone calls me on it. And that someone? That was you. That was always going to be you. She pressed her lips together for a moment. She's not going to stop, Victoria said. People like that, when they see something they've decided to disrupt, they find the angle that works, and they keep it. I know, Ethan said. So what do we do? He looked at her. We don't give her anything to work with. He paused. And we stop pretending to each other that we don't know what this is. The silence after that was the longest of all of them. Longer than the one in the kitchen on Saturday night. Longer than the one after Barely Counts. This one had weight and shape, and it sat between them like a question that had already been answered and was just waiting for someone to say the answer out loud. Victoria looked at him. I have never been good at this, she said. I know. I mean genuinely not good. I have ended things before they started because it was cleaner. I have chosen the job and the building and the late nights because they didn't ask me for anything I didn't know how to give. I know that too. And I am... She paused. Her hands on the desk were very flat, very still. I am not entirely sure I know how to be in something without engineering my own exit in advance. It's a reflex. So don't, he said. Don't engineer it. Just stay. One day, then another one. You're good at showing up. You've been doing it for 14 months without anyone asking you to. She looked at him for a long moment. That was different, she said. How? Because you didn't know, she said. Knowing changes it. When you know, I can fail at it in front of you. Victoria. His voice was very quiet. I have failed at the most important thing in my life every single day for 2 years. I failed at my marriage. I fail Lily in small ways constantly. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror for 20 minutes the morning after you left, because I didn't know what to do with my own face. He leaned forward. Failing in front of each other is not a reason to leave. It is the only honest way to stay. She didn't say anything, but she didn't look away. His phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it without meaning to. A text from the school. Routine. Lily's pickup reminder. Nothing wrong. But the sight of it did something to his face. Something small and automatic. The thing that always happened when Lily appeared in any form. Victoria saw it. She asked about you this morning, Ethan said. Before school. She asked if the lady with the quiet voice was going to come to the new apartment again. Victoria said nothing. I told her I didn't know, he said. She said... He almost smiled. She said that was a bad answer. Victoria's expression did the thing it always did when Lily was mentioned. That complicated, unguarded thing that had no name except maybe the look of someone understanding for the first time that they are hungry. She's 7 years old, Ethan said, and she has already decided. She decided the night she offered you the blanket. That's Lily. She picks her people, and then she's done deliberating. He paused. I'm the one who takes longer. Are you done deliberating? Victoria asked. Yes, he said, without hesitation. Without cushioning, without the slight upward inflection that left room for anything to come back through. I've been done for a while. I was just waiting until I was sure you had a door open. She looked at him, and then, something he had not seen before, not in 14 months, not in any meeting or any late-night conversation or any kitchen at 2 a.m. Victoria Hale's composure did not crack, because cracking implies damage. It opened. Just opened. The way a window opens when the weather outside finally turns. She said, I have a door open. He nodded once. Okay, he said. Okay, she said, and that was it. No declaration with cathedral lighting. No dramatic pivot. Just two people in a glass-walled office at 11:23 on a Monday morning. both looking at the other with the particular expression of someone who has put down a weight they'd been carrying so long they'd forgotten it wasn't supposed to be permanent. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday evening that was ordinary in every way that mattered, Victoria came for dinner. Not the first time. She had come twice since moving day, both times with something from the bakery, both times staying long enough for Lily to conduct her ongoing interview process, which she treated as an evolving series of follow-up questions. That evening she helped Ethan with dinner, while Lily sat at the counter telling them about a project at school involving the life cycle of frogs, which she considered personally fascinating and also slightly gross in a good way. At some point the food was done, and they ate, and Lily talked, and Victoria answered, and Ethan watched the two of them and felt the specific piece of something that has finally found the right configuration. Lily faded at 8:15, mid-sentence about the frog project, and Ethan carried her to bed. She was almost too big for this, but not quite. And tucked her in, and she said, already halfway gone, "Is she staying?" "For a while," he said. "Good," Lily said, and was asleep. He stood in the doorway for a moment. The east-facing window was dark now, but in the morning it would catch the light, and Lily would wake up in a room full of that light, 2 blocks from her school, with her purple bookshelf and her reading lamp and her elephant and everything she needed in a place that was actually theirs. He went back to the living room. Victoria was sitting on the couch that was now in the right position, with her shoes off and a cup of tea, and she looked up when he came in with the expression that was becoming familiar to him. The one that had no professional layer over it. The one that was just her, in a room where she had decided to be. He sat down next to her, not across the room, not in the chair at the appropriate professional distance. Next to her, the way you sit next to someone when you have stopped pretending there is a reason not to. "She's out," he said. "I heard." She paused. "She talks about the frogs in her sleep too?" "Only on Thursdays." She smiled, actually smiled, with her whole face, the way she had started doing in the last few weeks with a frequency that still surprised him every time. It was not a polished expression. It was real and slightly unguarded, and it changed everything about her face. And he thought, there it is. There is the thing that was behind the glass. They sat together in the quiet of the apartment, and the city did what cities do outside. And at some point, Victoria leaned her head back against the couch cushion and closed her eyes for a moment, and Ethan watched her and thought, this is a person letting themselves rest. That is what that looks like. He thought about a resignation letter in his jacket pocket, about 2 upside-down cups on a drying rack, about 14 months of coffee placed exactly where he reached, about a woman who sat in her car for 12 minutes on a Tuesday night and almost came up and didn't, and then came anyway 2 weeks later, with files that could have been emailed. About Lily saying, she looked like she needed somewhere to be. About the fact that needing somewhere to be is not a weakness. It is not a liability or a vulnerability or a thing to be engineered around. It is just human. The most human thing there is. The thing that gets covered over by years of managing and performing and arranging your life so that nothing can arrive by accident. And then sometimes, if you are very lucky or very tired or both, something arrives by accident anyway, and you are standing in your office at midnight with a resignation letter on your desk, and someone looks at it and doesn't touch it, and says, sit down, and you sit. And everything after that is just the story of 2 people deciding, slowly and imperfectly, and with full knowledge of everything they are bad at, to keep showing up. He reached over and took her hand. She didn't open her eyes, but her hand turned and her fingers folded around his, and she held on with the quiet certainty of someone who has decided, once and for all, that they are not engineering an exit this time. Down the hall, Lily slept with the faith of a child who had checked the door and found it solid. In the living room, Ethan Carter held the hand of the woman who had knocked on his life like she already knew he'd answer, and he thought, home was never the place I lost. It was the person I hadn't let stay. And this time, he had let her stay. And this time, she had.